It's time for another Mock Draft Monday, baby. We have a special draft announcement here on the program as well. Boy Green Daily starts right now.
I'm going to lose my gosh darn bananas. Boy Green Daily starts now. Zoinks!
Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily. Let's go!
Zooey mama.
Put your seatbelts on. Get ready for the ride. We're the freaking New York Jets, so we're built for this shit.
What's going on, you beautiful people out there? I'm Paul Eston Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green. I'm the New York Jets digital reporter for Heavy.com. Welcome to Boy Green Daily, a daily New York Jets video show, also available wherever you get your podcasts. It's a Monday. We're always talking draft, but before we get to our guest, a few comments I have to get right off the top. Shout out to all the Boy Green Coffee Club members in here. And I see it Hep immediately saying it. Dom C., the godfather of the draft. Well, folks, I can't get into too specific of details, but good news has happened to Dom C., and he will no longer be joining us every Monday for draft coverage starting immediately. So he will not be on today's show. But again, there's good news. I can't share it yet. It's not public. It's Dom C.'s story to tell. But folks, I just want to give a special shout out publicly because I just found this out, obviously, within the last week. Salute to Dom C. He's amazing. Godfather of the draft, bow down, kiss the shrine, baby. He's awesome. He's terrific, and we've appreciated everything that he's done for this show. And thank you so much. Again, he has exciting news. It's awesome. I'm so happy for him, and he will share that news in due time. With that being said, again, salute to Dom C. and everything he's meant to the show. We have a different guest today, and then a different guest moving forward that'll be talking to us from the very special brand draftprofessor.com. Well, get out your school notes, kids, because we're about to do some learning on this program. Some learning. Jim Wickens, he is the NFL draft host of draftprofessor.com. They've got a cajillion podcasts on their Gastro network, and this is something I think we can all vibe with. Boy Green Daily, daily New York Jets video shows. Well, how about NFL Draft Content Daily, for Pete's sake? Again, that's draftprofessor.com. Seems like the perfect gift. Easter's right around the corner, but a perfect Easter gift is spreading the gospel on all things draftprofessor.com. Without further ado, let's bring him in. Jim Wickens graces us with his presence at this very moment. Jim, thanks for joining the show, pal.
Hey, Paul, that was a heck of an introduction. Thank you very much.
Of course. So I appreciate you stepping in mid-season here. It's exciting, and we will be doing a 4-round mock draft with you here. And like I said, we'll be having a different draft professor, a draft professor student of some kind, dropping all kinds of action next week, which I'm looking forward to. But before we get into the Jets mock draft, please, if our listeners and viewers, because we have both, there are people that listen to the audio-only version of this podcast. There's also people that watch this live video stream as well. Please, if people don't know what draftprofessor.com is, please let them know what it's all about and who you are.
Sure. So first of all, shout out to Dom. I've known Dom for about 3 years. So Dom's referral to get me here, Dom, if you are listening, thank you. Humbled and thank you. So Draft Professor, we've been around for about 3 years, but the content kind of changed a little bit in October. We do daily draft content. Generally speaking, our shows are live at about 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern, Monday through Friday. We have a Saturday morning show, and then we also do a Sunday night show. But we cover the draft any way that we want. When we're doing 2 podcasts a day, we've done like an Ohio State podcast. We've done an Ole Miss podcast just because we can.
Sure.
Anything. But it's me and it's 51 of my closest friends. So we have 51 podcasters that help pump out daily draft content. And I know that the gentleman that's going to be helping you next week in this time slot, He is on our channel every Tuesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern. So his name is Drew, but I could go on about a lot of the different people. You will probably see if you are on X, you will see some mock drafts that are actually starting today. Like I think at like 9 Eastern, where the picks are going to be announced on Twitter. There's about 10 or 20 draft professors that are in that group of 32.
So cool.
Kind of thing. So we are all fan bases, right? So we don't necessarily have every fan base covered, but our draft professors span fan bases. I am a fan of an AFC East team that is not the Jets.
I've heard about that. I'm so sorry to hear that.
Yeah, and that's okay. That's okay. But you can follow our channel at NFL Draft Fanatic, no Iron Fanatic. It is the same on YouTube as it is on X. And I think the best thank you anybody could have is to subscribe to the YouTube. So, I can talk draft 365 days a year. So,
well, then I would just say that you're the right guy for the job. And real quick, just because I see a lot of questions about it. Again, I can't reveal it, but I just want to make this very clear. Dom C is perfectly okay. He's in full health. It's great news. Again, I can't reveal his thing. I want him to reveal it, but don't worry. It's nothing bad. It's good. It's totally great. Me and Dom had a conversation, and then which led us to draft professors, draft professor takeover, taking over the show here moving forward, which is great. But again, it is awesome news. Nothing bad. All great. Hopefully, Dom C is announcing that today. If not, hopefully here in the very near future. Again, salute to Dom C. So with that being said, Jim, let's get into it. You're going to be the general manager of the New York Jets. Congratulations on the pay raise and everything else, all the perks that it comes with. We'll be using the PFF mock draft simulator. It'll be a 4-round New York Jets mock draft. Jim will make the picks, and I'll just play the annoying guy in the room. The scout that probably was a holdover Jim didn't want to hire, but I'm sort of in the room saying, excuse me, what about this guy? So there might be some extra conversation happening here. So no better way to start this draft professor relationship than with a juicy 4-round mock draft. So let's throw it up here on the big screen so you guys can view this puppy. Again, the PFF 4-round NFL mock draft simulator. We're having all the settings 50-50 except randomness, because you always like a little spice in your life, baby. And the Jets pick 7th overall. And here we go. Jim, are you ready to start this with a bang?
I am ready to get started. Yes, sir.
Okay, so let's enter the draft. We will start the draft, and only for the first round will I tell you what happened in the picks previous. I won't be doing that for every round, but let's start off the top rope. The Tennessee Titans selected pass rusher Abdul Carter out of Penn State in this simulation. Travis Hunter, the corner wide receiver Colorado combo, went to the Cleveland Browns with the 2nd overall pick. Interesting, the Mason Graham. Add more to that defensive line, I suppose the Giants land. Interior defense lineman for Michigan went to the Giants. Ted McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona, went to the New England Patriots. Will Campbell, the offensive tackle out of LSU, or guard, went to the Jacksonville Jaguars with the 5th overall pick. And a very popular selection, Ashton Genty, the talented running back out of Boise State, went 6th overall, to the Las Vegas Raiders, which puts us on the board at 6. Walk us through it, GM. Walk us through it, Jim. What's the process here?
You can start off with a sprint here.
Oh, okay. Wow, I like that.
Cam Ward didn't go, really?
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, obviously, yeah, that's
so
bizarre.
Cam Ward is the number 1 player in the draft.
Yeah.
You can listen to who you want, but there's a lot of draft professors that have been watching Cam Ward for 4 years. The ascension of where Cam Ward started to where he is today, he is not done ascending. He is probably the number 1 player in the draft. So to me, you could have the debate of what the Jets do at quarterback, but Tyrod Taylor, really, everybody? So if people didn't know, I'm a Bills fan.
Okay, I guess you should just lay that out on the line. Let's just get that out of the way.
I have a lot of respect for Tyrod Taylor. He ended the longest playoff drought in pro sports, right? I got a lot of respect for the guy. He would be perfect because if Ward can't beat Taylor out, that actually is a sign, right? Because
yeah.
I think everybody here knows who Tyrod Taylor is.
Mm-hmm.
And if that's the floor of your QB room, that's a good floor. So I would be pounding the table for Cam Ward, but I would be curious. Yeah, and you're telling me that Justin Fields prevents you from drafting Cam Ward? Is that really what that comment was?
Yeah, some people have said that, which is interesting because obviously this is sort of a fresh thing. Justin Fields has just sort of joined us on the program. But yeah, there
Right.
have been some people that have suggested that the $40 million investment in Justin Fields maybe should have them thinking twice. But it sounds like that is not the case for you, Jim.
So okay, so what I can respect that you want to see what Justin Fields has, but again, I would also say if Cam Ward can't beat out Justin Fields, that's a sign.
Yeah.
Right? But Fields, is it a 1-year deal or a 2-year deal?
It's a 2-year deal, $40 million, $30 million guaranteed.
Got it. So I at this situation, I would consider Cam Ward, but if people want, like, can we scroll up a little bit? I'll tell you who the other guys I'm thinking of are.
Okay, yeah, let's go.
Okay. So Tyler Warren to the Jets would feel okay. Little bit too early for Jihad Campbell. He's probably going to miss. Campbell's probably going to miss the first half of the season. So the ranking is right, but there's an injury there that's going to keep him out for probably 4 to 8 weeks.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I think Membu seems to be the popular pick. Right tackle.
Mm-hmm.
So, my opinion would be the Jets do need offensive line help. The question is, do you need it bad enough to take it in the top 10?
Fair.
Yeah.
The other question would be, just to throw this out there in the universe, obviously this PFF is a mock draft simulation and weird stuff happens, like I said, when you sprinkle in a little bit of random, so they just don't go off their big board, one through everything we're going to pick. That would sort of, defeat the purpose, I suppose, of the simulation. Some people are arguing there's no world where Cam Ward would be on the board at 7. So in any of these picks, whether the Jets are picking at 7 or they're 42 in the second round or 73 in the third round, should we take anyone that won't actually be on the board for the simulation? So is there any chance in your mind that Cam's on the board at 7?
Any chance? No.
Okay. All right. So in that particular case, I guess we could just pretend, even though the PFF gods gave us Cam Ward on a silver platter, which, by the way, I would love, but because of that, I would assume that we'll take him off the board.
Okay. So in one fantasy world, we took Cam Ward. I'm just going to tell the Jets crowd out there, in a fantasy world, we took Cam Ward.
Yeah.
In a different fantasy world, I haven't used this simulator in about 3 years.
Okay.
And one of the reasons that I designed my own is because this wasn't random enough. But look at that. They fixed it.
Yeah, right. There's no question about that.
So I'm hungry.
Well.
Okay. If that's the case, I think the BPA here is Membu.
Okay.
And it's actually Membu, I still think, by a wide margin.
All right.
With the only other player that I'm considering for the Jets is Tyler Warren.
Okay.
I would have loved to talk about Mason Graham here. There's a chance we talk about Kenneth Grant here.
Okay. Let me ask you that real quick. How big is the gap between Mason Graham and Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant? How big is that gap in your mind?
I don't think it's that big.
Wow.
In addition, I think the argument is, did Mason Graham create Kenneth Grant, or did Kenneth Grant create Mason Graham?
Oh, boy.
Those are the types of discussions that we have, because I think Mason Graham benefited from the double teams on Kenneth Grant.
I see.
And it's humorous to be able to see, like, if Kenneth Grant falls to the end of round 1, it's like, because we see simulations where Kenneth Grant falls that far, but almost every draft professor has Grant high enough on the board that he doesn't get out of the top 20 picks.
Yeah, I'm going to be honest. Let me just jump on that real quick to say I couldn't believe it. I was just, I consume a lot of mock drafts. I'm a draft fan. And I went to NFL.com like, oh, cool, a 4-round mock draft. Sign me up. Let me see what they did for the Jets. Control F, Jets. And I'm like, Kenneth Grant at 42. I'm like, what the hell? So, yeah, that sort of caught me off guard. But so you've seen a little bit of that in the streets, but you're not believing it? You're not buying it?
I don't buy it. And actually,
Okay.
so that 4-round NFL mock draft, we did the mock on that draft on Saturday.
Oh,
so we went through all 4 rounds and compared it to our boards. And actually, one of the guys doing that is a Jets fan. That's Anthony Russo, if any of you know Anthony.
Okay.
But I actually thought, first of all, I got to give props. I think it was Chad Reuter was the one that made that.
Correct. Yes.
For somebody to take the time to do rounds 3 and 4 of a mock and put it online, like
major
regardless of where they had players fall, anybody that puts out a 4 or a 5-round mock, you tip your hat to them because the depth of your board to do that, anybody can do a round 1 mock. Yeah. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You'd be able to go rounds 4, round 5. Like last night, we did a round 4 and 5 mock.
Wow.
Right? Like, let's talk about the teams get built on early day 3.
Mm-hmm.
So, with this, like, I think Membu seems to be the popular pick.
Yeah.
And then Tyler Warren every once in a while. But I think that I'm hearing logic that you don't take a tight end in the top 10 the same way you don't take a running back in the top 10, unless that tight end's name is Brock Bowers. And Tyler Warren is not Brock Bowers. He's good, but he's not Brock Bowers special. So, like, there's no reason to screw up a top 10 pick.
Okay. And would you be comfortable taking Kenneth Grant at 7 if that was on your within your realm?
Oh, definitely.
Well,
definitely.
So, yeah.
Now I'm trying to think of the Jets roster here a little bit. What do the Jets have on the line?
They have, pass rushers on the edge, but on the interior, it's Quinnen Williams, and their now biggest addition is Derek Nottie from the Kansas City Chiefs, who played about 20% of the snaps last year, but historically has been a 40% rotation guy. So, they long story short, Jet fans are begging for help on the interior of the defensive line. That's why a lot of fans obviously are drawing over Mason Graham, but a lot of fans like Kenneth Grant, to be honest with you. We just haven't seen it in a lot of these mock drafts actually executed to this point.
Okay. So the way that I would phrase it is, think of talent cliffs. Okay.
All right. Sure.
Let's assume I'm coming into this thing. I'm going to go offensive tackle and defensive tackle rounds 1 and 2 in some order.
Mm-hmm.
The likelihood that you're going to get an offensive tackle where the Jets pick in round 2 is almost nil. By that time, Connerly is off the board. Mm-hmm. Ursery is off the board. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to remember. There's at least one other tackle
that could be there, or won't be there, rather.
Yeah. So from a talent cliff standpoint, if you need an offensive tackle and a defensive tackle, you take the offensive tackle in round 1 because they won't be there when you pick in round 2.
All right, fair enough. So is Armand Membu the pick?
Membu is the pick, yes.
Okay, let's make it official, baby. All right, folks, for those listening at home, the 7th overall pick is Missouri offensive tackle Armand Membu to play right tackle for the New York Jets at 7th overall, which skips us right on down to 42nd overall, where the Jets are on the clock. Okay, so you said that a potential strategy could be some trench warfare, and you just talked about that talent cliff of why you believe that hitting the right tackle, because you don't know what right tackle is going to be on the board at 42 versus what defensive tackles could be on the board. Should we investigate the defensive tackle availability?
Yeah. So let's first look at the offensive tackle and see how right we were.
Okay.
So Ursery is still here on the simulator. Yeah. I expect Ursery to go in the top 35 picks.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Right. So now the grading on Ursery has some variance. So a lot of what I do when I analyze the draft is I look at the variance of, like, how does Dom rate Ursery versus the other 51 guys I podcast with vary him to determine what's his range. I don't believe the simulator here. I don't believe the simulator because Cam Ward fell to the Jets, and I don't believe the simulator because Ursary fell deep. Well, we're what 1/3 of the way into round 2.
Right. Correct. Yeah, I like that.
So, but the rest of those guys that are listed there, Donovan Jackson, I would have listed as guard.
Okay. And what about Ozzie? A lot of Jet fans are high on Ozzie as this potential right tackle option for the Jets if they go in some other direction at 7. What say you about Ozzie Trapillo out of Boston College?
I don't think he's worth the Jets' second-round pick.
Fair enough. There you go.
Okay. So other positions of need for the Jets, like I could think of receiver.
Oh, for sure.
Drake London.
Yes.
A tight end.
Yeah.
I would at least look both of those. And I see the Higgins comment in the chat. Absolutely.
Yeah. He's the top receiver on the board available still here at pick 42. So you do see Jaden Higgins out of Ohio State. His teammate Jalen Knoll is here out of Iowa State. Yep. Interesting.
And I was actually going to give a shout out to Knoll.
Yeah. Okay.
I could see Knoll over Higgins.
Who?
There is a camp that actually has Knoll higher.
Oh,
I'm still on the Higgins side.
Okay.
But don't be surprised if Noel is the pick here.
Interesting. Okay, let me just take a peek at tight ends here while we're sitting here to see who's still available. Oh yeah, Arroyo. Yeah, that's who I thought. I love all of these names, to be honest with you. Arroyo, Mason Taylor out of OSU, Terrence Ferguson out of Oregon, Harold Fannin Jr. I'm a Syracuse guy, so I got to scroll down to find my boy Rondé Getz, and I'm sure there he is, a little deeper on the board. But yeah, there's a lot of really talented tight ends here.
I like hearing the Syracuse shout out. I grew up about an hour from Syracuse.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I've lived here for the last 17 years. I work in Syracuse at a radio station Monday through Friday. So, yeah, baby. Yeah.
Okay.
You got roots.
So I grew up in Fairport.
Okay. Yeah, that's right around the corner.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love that.
So I like Arroyo. I don't like Arroyo this high.
Sure.
Because he has an injury history.
Yeah.
So
let's avoid that.
Out of those tight ends, there's a list of, let's say, 5 of those guys I like. If we want to do tight end, I would wait to round 3 and pick the one that's left.
All right, fair enough. I'm all about that because, like I said, I love a lot of these names on this list. So you could totally sell me on, hey, let's revisit this in a round. So beautiful. All right, so where do you want to go? So
let's definitely look interior defensive line.
Okay.
And I'm looking to see if a specific group of players is there. Okay. So too high for Shamar Turner, too high for Lott, too high for West. Alfred Collins.
Ooh, yeah.
Screaming off the page. So I think Alfred Collins is a top 50 player.
Wow.
Okay. And one of the benefits of draft professors, right, is from October to December, we do a deep dive on players. So we were talking about Jack Besh.
Yeah.
And there might be a popular draft podcast everybody watches where they admitted on air that they didn't watch Besh or Savion Williams until they got Senior Bowl invites. We had watched them, podcasted about them 2 months before. So that's who draft professors are.
Yeah, baby.
We were pounding the table for Alfred Collins in November.
I love that.
So right now, with Alfred Collins being here, I am going to, we can keep scrolling to see if they're, because I don't know what the PFF board is.
Sure, right, yeah.
Tyleik Williams is the other guy I'm looking for, but it looks like he's gone.
Yeah, he's gone. I like Tyleik Williams, too. Yeah.
Yep. Is there any other positions that Jets fans want us to talk about?
So let's see. So obviously right tackle, we checked that one off the bucket list. Wide receiver, we just looked through. Defensive tackle, obviously, is up there. Another one, I guess, would be safety. I don't know who else is out there because we did, again, speaking of Syracuse boys, Andre Sisco, welcome back home, brother, who joins the Jets on a 1-year deal oh my gosh, Nicky Manwari still being here.
It's Manwari. You're sprinting this pick up. I don't know what kind of safety the Jets need, but the fact that he fell out of round 1 blows my mind. As much as I like Alfred Collins, Manwari is still 15 spots higher on the board.
Okay. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. I love it. And I think there's a chance, but who knows? The combine was amazing for Nick, so I could totally understand if that stock leads him to being a first-round draft choice. But I think, unlike Cam Ward, right, Cam is not going to be there at 7. Nicky Manwari at 42, I mean, someone always has to drop.
Yes.
It could happen. So is that the pick? Run it in?
It's Warry. As much as I like Alfred Collins, I think we can get a different interior lineman that might be he would be a tier down.
Yeah.
But here you're getting 2 possible all-pros.
Wow.
Right?
Wow.
So normally we try to draft starters, but I think in this case, I think Membu can be an all-pro right tackle. Warry can be an all-pro safety.
Okay, beautiful.
Right, we're not just talking plus starters. You're talking about difference makers.
Okay.
So I like Warry, and like a frequent player we see mocked to the Jets here is Xavier Watts, but he's off the board.
That's correct. Yeah, he went off the board. So, okay, let's make it official, baby. 42nd overall pick of the second round. The New York Jets take South Carolina safety Nick Warry here at 42 overall, baby. I love it. We're constructing the destruction of the Buffalo Bills in the AFC East. Jim, you are the perfect person to help us accomplish that. So thank you so much for your service, baby. But let's do this real quick. So shout out. We have J-Boy jumping in here saying Monday morning mock. Let's go. Every time we play a YouTube super chat here on the show, we hear from my beautiful daughter, Zariah Luna.
Wow.
All right, thanks, J-Boy. And also, I see that we have different chimes playing because every time we get a Boy Green Coffee Club member, we play some more chimes here on the show. Shout out to Mother Effing Chew, just gifting a membership to Friggy D. You are now a member of the Boy Green Coffee Club, and Mother Effing Chew, MFC. You have 15 raffle tickets for our contest at the end of the month, which we appreciate. So thank you so much. And we are halfway through this puppy. Now we're jumping to the third round. Now, this is a big point of, and I'm sure you guys have talked about this with all your draft professoring over there. Let me just ask you this, I guess, first off, with a quick detour. Have you ever heard of the situation that happened with the Jets? So the Jets trade for Devontae Adams in the middle of the year. And by all reporting, the Jets gave up. They had 2 third-round picks. They had their own, and they acquired a third-round pick from the Lions in the prior year's draft. The Lions gave a future 3 for the Jets 4 at that time. And so we knew the Jets had 2 third-round picks to play with. But when they made the trade with Devontae, everyone assumed and reported that the Jets gave up their own third-round pick. So we've been mock drafting for months of, oh boy, we have pick 92. Then out of nowhere, the Raiders trade that pick for Geno Smith. And then we hear, actually, the Jets have their own third-round pick this entire time. We're like, wait, what the hell? So we just suddenly, out of nowhere, jumped up 19 spots, which I will throw to you for a 2-parter. First off, how big of a difference is picking 92 versus 73 in this draft in terms of the talent? And number 2, have you ever heard of anything like that ever, of just somehow randomly? Again, the teams obviously knew the real thing, but in the public, the draft media eye, we've thought forever the Jets were picking in a completely different spot.
So having to maintain a draft order for a simulator, that's like real work.
Mm-hmm.
Like keeping track of who has which pick is real.
Yeah.
So have I heard of it? Probably not to the level that you just described, Paul. Yeah. But I think at this point with the draft order, I think I'm beyond ever being surprised.
I see.
Like, for example, how do you keep track of the forfeited picks?
Yeah, right.
Things like that. Like, where does that go in like the salary, right? Because each of these draft picks has a salary associated with it. So does that mean the salary if somebody gets bumped up because of 2 teams in front of them forfeited picks? Like, I could do a whole lecture on that, but that's not the purpose of this podcast.
Fair enough. And now we again go to the third round where again the Jets pick 73 now. They don't pick 92 anymore. It is 73. That's their own third round pick, obviously at the top of the third round. And I'm not even putting up positions here. It's just spitting out BPA. And one of the tight ends you talked about, several of them apparently, I mean, I'll go over to the section now, but the top player available, according to the PFF rankings, is Mason Taylor, the son of Jason Taylor, obviously Jets legend for his wonderful tenure with the New York Jets. But look at, a cajillion tight ends appear to be available at this point. Is that just the obvious direction to go here in the third round?
It is almost obvious. How are the Jets at linebacker?
So that's an excellent question. Look at Jim. You're just this beautiful co-host that's asking all these wonderfully questions. So here's the fact of the matter: the Jets unfortunately released my captain, CJ Mosley, out to the streets, and he's looking for a job. The Jets have Jamin Sherwood. They just signed him to a 3-year deal for $45 million. They have Quincy Williams, a former All-Pro, but he's in the last year of his deal. As I was looking at the numbers, there is not a team in the National Football League that pays 2 off-ball linebackers more than $8 million per year each. That does not exist in the NFL. The only thing that's close is the New Orleans Saints have 2 off-ball linebackers who are each making at least $7.5 million. So that's the closest. So long story short, teams in the modern NFL don't appear to be willing to invest that amount of resource at off-ball linebacker. And with Jamin Sherwood getting $15 million per year, which is a top 7 at his position, Quincy's like, well, I was a first-team All-Pro, man. I deserve more money than that. So now it's a little bit of a complicated issue here. Do the Jets trade Quincy? Do they pay him record-setting money and say, hey, I don't care if anyone else in the NFL is not doing this, we will. And if Quincy's gone, then obviously off-ball linebacker is going to be a pretty important position here.
So if you could go back to the board, we're not going to pick him, but one of my guys, though.
All right. Let's see.
So if you go to the Draft Professor YouTube station, you will see an interview with Ole Miss linebacker Pooh Paul.
Okay.
And I don't expect to see Paul in round 3. I expect him to be gone in round 2.
Okay.
Probable targets would include the Panthers and the Bills.
All right.
Like somewhere that's at the back of round 2.
Yeah.
But, Pooh Paul, I've interviewed him. I've talked with Pooh Paul. I've talked with his dad numerous times. His dad retweets our podcasts.
Cool.
I am shouting out Pooh Paul right now.
Damn straight.
We're not taking him, but you're getting a shout out.
There you go.
If you come on my channel and you let me interview you, you're going to get a shout out just about every time.
Okay. That's good. That's good for business. I appreciate it. Shout out Pooh Paul.
Yeah. So let's check the wide receiver board.
Sure.
But I'm thinking that it's going to be between Noel and Taylor.
Yeah, you're right. Noel is still on the board here. There's Trey Harris at a Mississippi, Jalen Royals at a Utah State, Savion Williams at a TCU, the fellow vertically challenged guy, and Tez Johnson, wide receiver at Oregon. You got the speedster Isaiah Bond. Yeah, you got a bunch of options here, it looks like. Yeah.
So, one of the issues with tight ends is that rookie tight ends don't tend to do well. Mm-hmm. So when you're drafting a tight end, you have to have like a 3-year outlook. Because even if like Brock Bowers, his tight end season was an outlier. Right. And I don't even know, like I'd have to go back and double check. Did Brock Bowers beat Mike Ditka's tight end record?
He did. For the first time, obviously, and that's 1,000 years since Ditka was playing back in the day.
Right. Like Ditka played tight end in the 60s, and his rookie tight end record lasted, what is that, like 60 years?
Yeah. 2024.
Right.
Crazy.
Like rookie tight ends just don't do well. So if you're drafting Mason Taylor, it's a project, but you have a new coaching staff. I'm liking the Mason Taylor pick, even though Royals is still here. Those were the two. So if you think about it, we've gone offensive line, we've done safety. I'm confident there's going to be defensive line there in round 4.
Okay.
So it's just a deep class. Like I don't feel like we need to reach when Taylor is available.
Okay. So it's tight end time?
I would say Mason Taylor, you are a New York Jet.
Boom! With the 73rd overall pick, let's make sure we play the chimes. We need to go through the entire process. Everything. With the 73rd overall pick in the 3rd round, the New York Jets are selecting LSU tight end Mason Taylor, son of Jets legend Jason Taylor. That's you are a New York Jet, my man, which jumps us to our final pick of this mock draft scenario. The Jets pick 110th overall, just behind Jim's Buffalo Bills here, 110 overall. All right, here we are on the big board. You said you want to check interior defensive line?
Yeah, let's go through each position group. Actually, like let's start at wide receiver, and let's just kind of go through best available.
All right,
so
here we go.
I like Horton and Bryant. Both of them here.
Okay.
Kyle Williams would be another guy here.
Mm-hmm.
But again, like I have a jaded opinion on wide receivers. If you don't pick one in the first 3 rounds, just wait until round 6.
Okay. There you go.
It's like the statistical variance of whether like what you're getting.
Mm-hmm.
It's either you pick them day 2 or you wait until round 6. So, not a fan here.
Okay.
The Jets don't need running back. We've already picked a tight end.
Yeah, we're good there. Okay.
Yeah, so we've done offensive tackle. Do the Jets need a guard as well, or is a single tackle enough change?
Guard may be something at some point in this draft for future. Again, not the draft isn't always. Oh man, I need an offensive tackle right now. Like Armand Membu just happened to work out. Right, we need a right tackle. He's a right tackle. Bing, boom, bam. He goes right to the starting lineup. The Jets have their 2 starting guards, so depth, of course, is always in question. But in terms of starters, they're covered. Their corners, they're covered for starters. And maybe even on the bench. The 2 things that 3 things, I guess, is interior defensive line would be in question. Pass rusher, because you always need more of those, and then off-ball linebacker. Those would probably be the 3 that, and wide receivers we already talked about earlier. Those would be some of the ones that are up for grabs, I would say.
Okay, so let's look at defensive line and linebacker specifically.
Okay, let's see.
So Peebles, I like Caldwell here. So.
Okay.
Out of the players that I've seen so far, Caldwell is the one that to me has dropped the most.
Okay. All right. Let's take a look here at your linebacker conversation real quick. Let's get that up here.
And nobody's talking about it, but this is a pretty good linebacker class.
Yeah, I have not heard a lot of people talk about that. That's right.
So among the linebackers that I would consider here for the Jets would include Kobe King and Jack Kaiser and Cody Steinman.
Okay.
So I can see, so right there actually, oh, wow. Okay, so there's a group other than the top linebacker, like Barrett Carter.
Yeah.
I would maybe wait around on Carter.
Okay.
But between Bassa, Kaiser, King, Simon, Lindenberg, Stutzman.
Yeah.
You don't need to pick a linebacker now because there's probably going to be one available next round.
Okay, perfect. We'll wait on that then.
Like,
yeah, I think
this
that makes
is
sense.
a really so the challenge with linebacker, right? It's like the running back of the defense. Meaning that when I say that, it's like it's a devalued position.
Yeah.
But if you look at the playoff teams,
Mm-hmm.
the teams that advance in the playoffs get elite linebacker play. So you want linebackers, you just don't want to pay them to the point that you made earlier in the podcast, Paul.
Right. Correct.
Keep on their rookie deals and then let somebody else pay.
Yeah, and keep re-finding the next guy at dirt cheap. So that makes a lot of sense. So what? Go back to interior defensive line?
Yeah, and I'm sitting here thinking, is there a position that we haven't investigated yet? The Jets have enough edges, you said.
Yeah, well, you could use an edge. I mean, it depends. They have Jermaine. He's coming off a torn Achilles. Will McDonald's coming off a career year. So you probably need a third guy. But I guess it depends on value here on the board, I suppose. Here's some of the edge rushers that are available.
Okay, so I am going to shout out a couple guys. We're not going to pick them.
Yep.
But I'm going to shout out. So Oladajo are up at the top.
Yep.
Dropping to round 4 surprises me.
Okay.
Okay. So that's a Senior Bowl player.
Mm-hmm.
He started as an off-ball linebacker, got moved to edge. Mm-hmm. So he may not be a hand in the dirt. He might be comp to Will McDonald in some ways.
Interesting.
Right. But not the pick here, but surprise. Another player to pay attention to who I think is going to be drafted higher is Robinson from Alabama.
Interesting.
So if you're not familiar with the player, he played behind some NFL players you might know at Alabama, which would include Dallas Turner and Chris Broswell.
Yeah, pretty good.
He couldn't crack Alabama's starting lineup, but he had NFL players in front of him. The same way Alfred Collins was playing behind Sweat, and I'm already escaping who the other Texas defensive lineman that went in round 1 of that draft. His name already escapes me, but Alfred
It's
Collins
okay.
was playing behind 2 NFL players. That's why we didn't know about him coming into the year.
Right.
So Q Robinson played special teams for 3 straight years, and you're flooring him as a special teams stud. His measurables are off the chart, and then he gets hurt 7 games into the season. So we basically have 7 games of film on him. But if you extrapolate those 7 games of film, that's a round 1 edge.
Wow.
Okay. 5-star recruit, checks all the boxes up until you say you want like 2 years of tape. So Q Robinson, I think, is going to go higher than every draft simulator has him going.
Okay.
So
it's good to know.
So that would be a player I definitely want to give a shout out to, because I'm going to keep my eye on whoever gets him.
Yeah.
I have an IDP fantasy league. He's
Okay.
going to be my 5th round pick.
I love that.
Like, I know I'm going to get him and stash him.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So I definitely like Caldwell. If the Jets need defensive line help, I like Caldwell.
Okay. Well, let's jump over there. They certainly do. There's no question about it. So I'll go. All right. Let's hit the draft chimes, baby, and let's finish this 4-round draft off right. 110th overall pick in the 4th round, the New York Jets select interior defensive lineman Jamari Caldwell out of Oregon to wrap up our mock draft here. Beautiful. Again, we did a 4-round mock draft. We'll also put this up. You guys can tell Jim how you really feel about this thing. We'll be putting it up on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, so you can feel free. And wow, this is one of the best graded. I'm sure you don't care about PFF and what they think about this, but this is one of the best graded drafts we've seen. So there you go.
Oh, is it really? Okay. So
8 times.
If you try a mock on Draft Professor, I guarantee the first time you do it, your grades will not be this good.
I love that guarantee. So that's good.
Our grading is our Draft Professor, the simulator is fan based, which means that the more fans pick players, the better the grade on the player.
That's cool. I like that.
It's a group think. So if you think different than the group, your grades will be low.
Interesting.
And my mother will tell you I never got good grades in school.
Okay.
And kids, you can be a B student and not completely F up your life. I'm Exhibit A.
Oh, there you go. Well, we'll make sure we tell Mama Wickens here to grab this and put this up in the refrigerator after such a stellar draft. Great report.
NC Green, I like that comment. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. There you go. He said, I would take this draft all day. Ain't happening. So I guess he doesn't believe some of the values. Now, we have to just take that for what it is. I love mock drafts. Mock drafts are awesome, but obviously each simulator has its own pros and cons. So, again, I think Membu's going to be on the board. We'll see on E-Man Wari. I really loved him ahead of the combine, and then the combine happened. I'm like, oh boy, that could be trouble. So we'll see. You never know in the draft. People slip and slide and fall all over the place. So fingers crossed, baby. Fingers crossed. Beautiful. How do you feel? So, Jim, now that you were doing it live, bullets flying, and now we're re-looking at it, if this being the draft class, how do you feel about it for our Jets faithful?
Well, I think this is good. Like, I think my basic assessment is the drafts I'm going to like the best this year are the teams that took 3 linemen in the first 4 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
We took 2 in the first 4, so we did average, right? But generally speaking, I think if we think about what's it going to be like the Sunday after the draft, the drafts everybody's going to like are the ones that took 3 linemen, offense or defense, right?
Yeah.
There's 9 positions on the field. And this is a really good draft. It's just not a good fantasy football draft.
I see. That's a good way to put it.
Right? So, like, you're not going to see the wide receivers that are going to do what Malik Neighbors did.
Mm-hmm.
And I would even argue that the running backs aren't going to take the league by storm this year. The running backs will do good their second year, but they're not necessarily going to be starters year 1, right?
Yeah.
But what you're going to see is that as long as your general manager likes to draft trenches, Howie Roseman, the This is a Howie Roseman draft. This is going to be a Howie Roseman masterclass this year.
There you go. I love it.
So if your team needs linemen, this is the right draft. If your team needs a left tackle, it may not be the right draft. But you can fix every other position on the line in the draft. Right tackle, your guards. You can move a couple players to center. So while it may not be the best center class, there's going to be players that you can move to center. Defensive tackle, I don't know that I've ever seen a draft that had this many defensive tackles.
Wow. So that's what we need. So
yeah. And like, it was funny because we talked about taking a defensive tackle in round 1.
We did.
Waited until round 4, and I still like the pick.
See, that's a good business for what everyone said with the depth, again, of this defensive tackle class. We've heard that throughout the entire offseason. Again, that works out for the Jets because, boy, do they need it. And some have suggested they should even double dip potentially in this draft with their 8 draft selections. We'll see ultimately if they do that coming up in April. By the way, we are a month away from the draft today. April 24th is the first round of the 2025 NFL draft out there in Green Bay and Lambeau. For the draft, this moving circus that is the 2025 NFL draft. All right, Jim, let's do this. If you are open to it, and you probably should or should not be, I don't know. We'll see what the fans are. Are you open to the phone calls? Are you ready to take on the wrath of Boy Green Daily viewers?
Oh, yeah, you can bring it on. Like, what's the worst thing that could happen to me through a computer screen?
Well, I guess we're about to find out, aren't we, Jim? So here we go. We'll play a quick timeout. And, guys, after this short break, up next, your phone calls. You could call in. Jim is sticking through. So for now, and you could continue to ask your questions, anything on that Jets draft we just did, any draft prospects or what have you. Let's do it. Boy Green Daily continues after this.
Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily. Talking Jets football, man. Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily, Boy Green Daily. New York Jets Football Club. Offense, defense, special teams, watch Jets football with Boy Green. J-E-T-S, Jets. Let's go.
Let's bleep and go, baby. We got 600 people live in the room. Make sure you guys like the video, hit subscribe. We're trying to secure our chase for 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, so keep spreading the gospel, baby. And the phone lines are now open. That is the pinned comment on youtube.com/boygreen25. If you're watching on one of our other features, we're streaming live on Facebook and Twitter, as along with some of Jim's social media portals as well. You guys have to hop on over to youtube.com again, /boygreen25. Feel free to call into today's program. Let's go immediately to the phone lines. The guy that was just playing that guitar, Hep, joins us here on the show. What's up, Hep?
Hey, Paul. Hey, Jim. Hey, fellas. How you doing today?
Doing pretty good, Paul.
Good. I was curious about Gunnar Helm, maybe in the third. What's your opinion on him?
I think the third is as high as he would go. I could see maybe the back half of round 2 because the Eagles do need a tight end, and Howie Roseman does like SEC players. But
you think he'll go before Taylor?
No,
you don't.
I don't think he'll go before Taylor, but a lot of it with tight ends is scheme fit. What type of tight end does a given offensive coordinator want? Some may like the athleticism, let's say, of Arroyo, over the fact that Helm would be like inline. Like, I don't know that you would draft Taylor and Helm to do the same tight end role. It might be the same position on your fantasy football roster, but it's not necessarily the same role within an NFL offense.
Got you.
Right. Whereas like Taylor's more, to me, is more of a pass catcher. Helm is more of might be a little bit less of the pass catcher, but he's more of like an all-around tight end. So what type do you want or need?
Well, hopefully we'll run Forrest run this year, you know.
Yes, damn straight.
And So anyway, I would be happy with that draft as far as the tackle in the first round.
Mhm.
I really love Warren too, but I think that we really got to take care of business, and it's a safer pick.
Yeah, to go offensive tackle. I agree. I think you're right, Hep.
All right, guys, I love you. See you on the rebound.
Thanks,
All
Hep.
right. Yeah, thanks for the call, Hep. Appreciate it. Yeah, let's go back to Warren for a second, Jim, because apparently you hate his guts because he's not Brock Bowers. So what about Tyler Warren, baby? He is a very. Those are the. If I had to guess, the two most popular picks across all Jets mock draft land. It's either Armand Membu, the Missouri offensive tackle at 7, or it's Tyler Warren. That's currently the conversation.
Okay.
There's sort of some poeticness to it that last year the Jets are like, Brock Bowers, Olu Fashanu. So it just sounds like we're having the same conversation every year. Offensive tackle, tight end, offensive tackle. So it keeps it being the same thing. It sounds like from your earlier analysis that Brock Bowers and Tyler Warren are, again, they both play tight end in fantasy, but I don't think whether or not they do the same things. How do you evaluate them as prospects? How close are they or not close are they?
So I think Warren is the best tight end of this class.
All right.
But Brock Bowers is a generational prospect. And let's not use that term lightly.
Okay.
Right? We have established that Brock Bowers set a rookie tight end record.
Yes.
Okay. We don't think Tyler Warren is going to do that. He's going to be a good tight end. But from a draft perspective, when you're picking in the top 10, you're looking for an all-pro. I don't think Tyler Warren is an all-pro tight end. I think he's a starting tight end.
Okay.
So when you're drafting in the top 10, you would, my opinion from a team building standpoint, I'd rather pick an all-pro at a core position.
Mm-hmm.
Core position, anything along the trenches, maybe not guard, but anything along the trenches, wide receiver, corner, are core positions. I don't consider tight end to be a core position.
So you're sort of like Mel Kiper with running backs. Mel Kiper hates running backs in the first round. You sort of have that same vibe, but with a variety of positions, potentially.
And I'm going to say in the top 10, I'm
Okay.
not going to go like if the Bills or the Chiefs drafted a running back in round 1, I don't think any of us is going to bat our eyes at it.
Mm-hmm.
But I realized the Jets drafted a couple of running backs. You got Breece Hall and you got Isaiah Davis. By the way, I loved Davis last year. So like I have Davis stashed on a couple of my fantasy teams.
Ooh, hey now.
Right. So like I like the Jets running back room, right? So the Jets aren't drafting Genty at 7, right?
But that would be surprising, I suppose.
Right. But my opinion is from a team building perspective.
Sure.
You focus on core positions in the top. If you're drafting in the top 10, unless that's a generational tight end like Brock Bowers, you can't make that pick.
It sounds like we use the term generational too often for your liking, Jim.
Yes. And let's give an idea as to how good of a prospect Brock Bowers was. Does anybody remember who the Raiders took the year before? I believe in round 2.
Michael Mayer, the Notre Dame tight end.
Right. So even with Mayer on the roster, they knew that Brock Bowers was generational. They knew that had to be the pick.
Yeah.
Right? Like you don't want to be the GM that passes on Brock Bowers type thing. It's okay to be the GM that passes on Tyler Warren. It's not the same.
That's interesting. I love how that was. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So if you're asking like what the difference is, that's the difference. It's okay to pass on Tyler Warren. It's not okay to pass on Brock Bowers.
Wow. I've never heard it quite put that way so eloquently, but I love it. Now, that's going to be instilled in my mind forevermore on this Tyler Warren conversation. Let's go back to the phone lines here. We got Johnny Boy here on the program. Good morning, Johnny. You're on mute before. I don't know if you knew that or not. So, okay. Welcome to the show, Johnny Boy.
Morning, BG. Morning, Jim. How are you guys holding up this morning?
Doing pretty good, Johnny.
I wanted to ask you, well, first off, I like the Membu pick, right? I would be happy with that because I believe in, making the trenches solid. So I think that's a player that you would do, and then I think we would have a solid line for a while. But I wanted to ask in regards to the wide receivers, what are your rankings in the wide receivers currently? Right. I mean, you got Ted, I know, Golden, and then you got the kid from Ohio, I always mess up
Emeka Ibuka, baby.
Emeka
Yeah, it's my
Ibuka,
boy.
right?
Yes.
But after that, how much does it fall for the wide receivers? Is it a significant fall from those top 3 players, or are there other wide receivers that are out there that could potentially come in and start day one? So I wanted to ask that question for you, Jim. BG, appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, thanks, Johnny, for the call. Yeah.
Okay, so wide receivers. This is a pick your flavor wide receiver class.
Okay.
Almost the same way that we just talked about Warren.
Mhm.
And I think we talked about maybe a couple of other positions where it's about scheme, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so we have to go with what is the definition of a first round grade?
All right.
Because I believe that's going to tilt people's view of the wide receiver class. So last year, no matter who drafted Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, Rome Odunze, Brian Thomas Jr., do we agree that those players would be the same whether the Jets, Bills, or their respective teams drafted them?
Apparently not according to the Jets. They said Malachi Corley was higher on their board than Brian Thomas Jr., so Jet fans still are screaming about that in the bar. Yeah.
Okay. So the reason I say that is the definition of a first round grade to me is when the player's going to fit no matter where you put them.
I see.
So with the wide receivers that were just mentioned, Egbuka is not the same wide receiver that T-Mac is not the same receiver that Burden is not the same receiver that Golden is, and is not the same receiver that Higgins is. So different teams are going to have different players as number one on their board. Okay. Higgins is probably the number one receiver for Green Bay.
Okay.
So Green Bay is not going to draft T-Mac, not going to draft Burden, probably not Egbuka, probably not Golden. Higgins is probably number one on their board. If you look at just how Green Bay builds their receiver room, Higgins is the fit. Okay. Now, if the Jets drafted Higgins at 7 overall, I think Twitter would erupt.
They would. Yeah. That'd be accurate.
Right?
An accurate prediction. Yes.
Okay. For Buffalo, Golden is wide receiver 1. I don't think it's close. Golden is wide receiver 1, maybe Burden. But then you look at another team and they need a possession guy. T-Mac is going to be wide receiver 1 over Burden if your team needs like a possession receiver. Okay. Egbuka is going to be a Z or a slot. So if your team needs a slot, do you like the Egbuka slot or the Burden slot? Because they're both slot receivers, but they're not going to play it the same way. Kind of thing, right? Egbuka, better blocker, Burden, more of a downfield threat. But they're both probably playing the slot, right? So you look at like Garrett Wilson, look at how the Jets use him. And then say, what do you have to put on the other side of Garrett Wilson? Because you don't want to take touches away from Wilson. You need a player that's going to complement him. More than likely a downfield threat, right? Like let Wilson be that possession receiver that's underneath. Is that the way that you would see it?
Yes, 100%. We need someone that takes the top off of defense. And while Garrett has really nice speed, I think when you look at what in the NFL, he's got this 3-year sample size of what he is. I think 100%. You do need that deep threat speed, which would be very interesting. I want to go back to something you just said, Joe. What is the number one? You do all your coverage for all the teams, but specifically you have Buffalo Bills blood, which again we're still trying to forgive you for. Who's the number one receiver for the Buffalo Bills in this draft?
Matthew Golden, and it's not close.
The Texas wide receiver.
Correct.
Man, interesting. There's another Texas wide receiver the Bills could have taken last year. What was his name? A speed guy, but they traded out of the pick. That was sort of weird. Very odd, Jim.
I'm okay. I'm okay with. I was not okay. I was in Detroit when they made the Keon Coleman pick.
Yeah,
I literally showed up to the draft on Thursday. Buffalo traded out, and my friends were there with me. Like, we came down here for Buffalo to not make a pick. Right?
That's hilarious. Yeah.
So we went back the next day. They picked Keon Coleman. I would say I was not a fan at the time, but I have since warmed up
to
my general manager's mindset with team building.
Yeah. So let me ask you that, because that's I got it in some of my draft notes. I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's right now, if no trades happen, in the first round. This is the first draft since I arrived on this planet in 1993 that every team would hold their own first round pick. That we don't have, a lot of years we'll have, this team's got a pair of first round picks in this part or this part or this part. So I'm kind of curious to see because that's how it currently sets up. But you mentioned, there's that 5th-year option at the back end of first round where all of a sudden someone could be compelled to just say, ooh, let me actually trade back in there and get my guy, especially like a team like the Giants, let's say they don't take a quarterback at 3, they could certainly be at the beginning of day 2 and they say, you know what, we don't want to get leapfrog here. Let's just be aggressive and pick our quarterback of choice, whoever that may be in the greater universe, and we'll trade up to go get that guy. And then we won't get our 1993 stat there, but it currently holds. Very interesting.
Yep. So I'll also offer a couple of other trade hot takes.
Ooh, please do.
If you look at this draft, there are not a lot of tackles and there are not a lot of corners.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, and you look at the teams at the top of round 2 that need to take a tackle, which would include the Patriots and the Giants.
Mm-hmm.
There's no tackles worth taking in the top 5. Well, no, I can see Membu. I can see Membo going. Let me backtrack on that.
Okay. Yeah.
If the Patriots pass on Membu, they're going to need a tackle.
Yeah.
By the time the Patriots pick in round 2, Connerly and Ursary are probably off the board.
Mm-hmm.
So if they want one of them, they're going to have to trade up to get the tackle because everybody else is going to be trading up to get them too. Okay?
Yeah.
Same thing with corner, but this time with corner specifically, the playoff teams need corners. Minnesota does, Buffalo does, Kansas City does. Kansas City less because they signed some free agents. But when I talk to Kansas City draft people, they say, like, if Trey Amos was there round 1, that could be the pick.
Mm-hmm.
So a team that needs a corner, and if you're fighting for a playoff spot and you're a starting corner away, you're taking it round 1, and it's going to be Azare Thomas. It's going to be Trey Amos, Maxwell Hairston. Back of the first round, those guys, they may not have first-round grades, but they have all of the traits of being a starting corner in the right scheme. Okay? So I think you're going to see trade-ups for offensive tackles and corners at the back of round 1, and it's less about the 5th-year option and more about you got to leapfrog the teams that need positions which are scarce. There's not a lot of corners. And if you need references on that, check like Locked On Scouting with Kyle Krabs. That's my go-to podcast I watch. And you can watch him mention about the number of corners, and there may have been a certain draft professor that was the one that called in the take. I'm just saying. Right. So this is not the strongest corner class. But let's go back to that wide receiver question.
Yeah.
From that listener. First of all, it was a great question, and I'm very long-winded in my answers.
That's all right. I like wind. Yeah.
So wide receiver, it's all about scheme fit because there's 20 receivers here which are solidly good. And last year, I think 18 went in the top 3 rounds, and that was a record. This year, I think we're at like 15 in the top 100.
Yeah.
So we're not that far off. It's a decent wide receiver class. We're just missing the Neighbors and the Harrison Juniors and the Brian Thomas Juniors at the top. Like, I don't think any of these receivers would be ranked higher than Brian Thomas Jr. So I wouldn't have T-Mac that high. I wouldn't have Golden that high. I wouldn't have Igbuka that high. But last year, if Igbuka came out, Igbuka was probably wide receiver 7. Like, that's where he was on the board before we removed him from the simulator.
Yeah.
Right? And Igbuka is the same player this year that he was last year. But with Igbuka, you're getting, like, it's a T. Higgins light. You're getting a wide receiver 2 who's going to be really good at being a wide receiver 2, but he's not going to be your Batman. But if all you're looking for is Robin, Igbuka is a perfect addition to any offense that already has an X wide receiver.
Beautiful. Well, I love Robin. He deserves his own movie. So, Emeka, let's bleep and go as far as I'm concerned. Real quick, we have a bunch of questions in here that we'll get to, but one I want to get to off the top because this has been a polarizing prospect in Jets land. From when we were doing mocks a couple of months ago to mocks now, this guy has been sort of disappearing. Tet McMillan, the wide receiver out of Arizona, the one that Ricky New York, one of our callers, calls Tater Tot McMuffin. Okay. This guy I want to ask you about because speed is a question, and there's some question. I don't know how many draft professors were there on the stopwatch at that pro day, so I'm not sure on the time check for when Tet McMillan was at 4.48 or 4.56. I guess that's up for interpretation. How do you view the Tet McMillan story? Because people are saying, "Oh, contested catch guy," but also slow as molasses. So how do we factor all that in there?
Did we expect Tet to run faster?
I don't think so. No.
You see, and that's what I mean. So, okay, so fans that are watching the draft, they need a number to compare things to, right? So fans are going to compare the 40 times. It's what fans do. Go ahead. Right? I'm not going to tell you to change your mind.
Yeah.
I pride myself on critical thinking.
Okay.
So I'm an engineer by day. I think through problems all the time, right? So from my standpoint, Tet is who he thought he was. And I think preseason hype had him too high.
Okay. I like that Dennis Green shout out there. He is who he thought he was. Nice. Good job, Jim. I like that.
That was not planned, but good catch. So I think Tet, it's like he's comped to Keon Coleman. He's a better version of Keon Coleman.
Interesting.
Right? He's a big-bodied receiver. He's a contested catch guy. The issue is, are you willing to draft a receiver that doesn't separate? So you have to ask yourself, what else is in your wide receiver room? So I think Tet is going to come in as a top 48 NFL wide receiver. He's going to be like for just about any team in the league, or at least half the teams in the league, he'd be their best wide receiver too. You know, he's not going to be that for the Bengals.
Right.
Not going to be that for Miami. Okay, but you look around the
most
league,
teams. Yeah, I got
he would be a wide receiver too on at least half the team. So he's a top 48 wide receiver. Now, but again, it goes back to, are you intending to draft an all-pro, or are you looking for a starting wide receiver? So it comes into, if you're drafting in the top 10, you want to draft an all-pro. If Nick Emmanwori is an all-pro, it's okay to draft him in the top 10. Now, I probably wouldn't do that with a safety, probably, but we just grabbed him in round 2, so I'm happy with that pick, right?
Yeah, there you go.
But the goal should be to draft all pros at core position in the top 10. And just identify what you decide are your core positions: quarterback, wide receiver, corner, edge, defensive tackle, offensive tackle.
Yeah.
And if it's not one of those positions, re-examine. We want a plus starter.
I see.
That kind of thing. It's
about expectation. I got you.
Yeah.
Here's another question. Speaking of offensive tackles, again, this is a guy that was mocked to the Jets early on in the process, but has sort of fallen by the wayside. NC Green here says, Jim, how do you compare Will Campbell, the LSU offensive lineman, to Armand Membu as a right tackle? Apparently, I hear he has, quote, little T-Rex arms, end quote. So on Will Campbell there, how do you compare Will Campbell? Where the hell is he playing on the offensive line at the NFL level?
Go to the draftprofessor.com website and tell me what position Will Campbell is listed as, please.
Yeah. Let me
He's not listed as a tackle on my simulator.
Oh, well, what's he listed as? Let me see.
So that's going to answer the question. Now, I've been given some pushback that, Jim, you got to let him be a tackle. And some of the draft professors are giving me enough feedback that I probably have to switch his position. I'm going to say Membu, from very early on in the process, has been identified as a tackle, and the rest of the draft community is catching up to the draft professors. We were in on Membu in November. Specifically, the two draft professors that had that were Jacob and Brian. And I'll just give a shout out to Jacob and Brian. They had him.
Yeah.
they had Membu as one of the better tackle prospects in the class well before the media was talking about him. So I'm going Membu here. Campbell just had preseason hype. He's a really good player. He's probably one of the top 5 offensive line prospects in the draft. The question is, do fast feet and can footwork mitigate short arms? There is data to suggest that's possible. I'm just saying there's data to suggest it's possible.
Okay.
But I would rather have Membu.
Fair enough. Here was another one because you were singing the sweet praises of one Brock Bowers earlier in the show. Jet Jaro says, so Jim was Olu Fashanu, the Jets pick. Again, they picked at 10. They traded with the Minnesota Vikings. Great Jedi mind trick there from 11 to 10. Got the guy they wanted ultimately in Olu Fashanu. And a few picks later, Brock Bowers was the pick for the Raiders. Did the Jets make a mistake taking Olu Fashanu over Brock Bowers? Jim?
I'm going to go 1 year in and say no.
Okay.
I hope that I'm allowed to change my mind in 2 years. So here's the reason why.
All right.
Tackle is a premium position. Tight end is not. You need to draft the premium position. So even if Olu is only a starting left tackle.
Yeah.
Whereas Bowers is an all-pro tight end.
Mm-hmm.
That's really the discussion, right? Mm-hmm. Is a starting left tackle more valuable than an all-pro tight end? I can sell it either way, but I would have picked Olu there.
Okay.
Like, I think that's where my simulator had him going. And my simulator is more about like where fans think the players are going. So that's kind of how the algorithm works.
Yeah.
But I wasn't, it didn't bother me that Olu was going higher than Bowers because from a positional need and team building, you need a tackle, right?
Yes, of course.
There's 2 or 3 positions that tend to play for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Your quarterback, if you do it right, is going to be in your team for 10 or 15 years. Mm-hmm. Your left tackle is probably going to be able to play the same 10 or 15. Tight ends aren't going to be productive for 15 years. Right?
Well,
you need the tackle.
And look at the left tackles that were available this offseason, right? So go back to last year, right? The Jets make the pick. This year, there's no one in free agency. A lot of people get overpaid like Dan Moore. You go to the draft, and we're like, Will Campbell, right? We're getting in an octagon cage fight to determine left tackle, left guard, right guard. He's in this position. No one knows. And then Armand Membu is just right tackle. So you really start vetting through who the left tackles would have even been available this offseason, while the Jets would have, in theory, had this shiny toy of Brock Bowers. Ooh, this is nice. But then left tackle, oh boy, who the hell's playing left tackle? So
Paul, actually, you have a pretty good take there.
Yeah.
So one way to think about when you're drafting is ask yourself, what positions can you get in free agency?
Mm-hmm.
When was the last time a good left tackle hit free agency?
Oh my goodness.
That's a trick question. They don't.
No one. Oh.
If it's a good left tackle, nobody is letting them go.
Right.
Right. So you need to draft the tackle because you're not going to get one any other way.
Yeah.
Tight ends change teams all the time.
Sure.
Like if that's your missing piece, we saw TJ Hawkinson get traded.
Yep.
I think Michael Mayer is probably going to be traded this draft cycle.
I imagine so. Yes.
So tight ends get traded.
Yeah. Left tackles, not that often. Although, shout out to the Washington Commanders for taking the Houston Texans left tackle and Laramie Tunsil. He's been traded over like a pile of biscuits. He got traded. Dolphins, Houston, Washington. Hopefully his travel agent is well compensated. Now, Jim, our last one before we get you out of here, you mentioned it. It even may have been off air to me, but a lot of folks are in Jet fan land are like, do we take a quarterback at all in this class at any point? Or do we wait till 2026? The grass is always greener. Hey, I hear there's better quarterbacks next year, Jet fans say. Yep. And Jim, you told me before the show that not only obviously do you guys work on the 2025 draft that is literally a month away from today, but you already are getting your work in for the 2026 class. And fans and media people say, folks, that's the quarterback class to watch. I turn it to you, Jim, because you have all the answers. You're the draft professor, for goodness sake. I'm coming after class. I got some additional questions, Professor. Yeah. And it's this. Is the quarterback class that is currently being hyped up for 2026 the real deal, or is it a bunch of fluff?
It's real.
Okay.
If Drew Allar or Garrett Nussmeier were in this QB class, they would either be QB 1 and 2 or QB 2 and 3. We had them really high. We had them all going in like the top 6 in mock drafts that we were doing in November. So, and then there's a couple of other guys. So there is already a podcast for this on our channel. We had quarterbacks week. We had a week where the only thing we podcasted was quarterbacks.
Wow.
Which included the 2026 QB class. So if you want to see what that preview is, we did it in January. It was wild card week. So the quarterback week and wild card week are the same week.
Yeah.
Where we podcasted everything quarterbacks. But I'll also offer a couple of other tidbits there on like team building and quarterbacks. If the Jets are all in on a quarterback, like they know that they need one.
Yes.
The Jets need to trade down and get a 2026 first from any team. It doesn't matter who. And the reason that you're doing that is so that you have the ammunition next year to move up so you don't have to tank. Right? So does anybody know what the Buffalo Bills did the year before they drafted Josh Allen?
Didn't they make the playoffs?
They did, and they were still able to get Josh Allen at 7.
Yeah.
And the reason that they did is we traded Tyrod Taylor for a 3rd-round pick. We traded Sammy Watkins for a 2nd-round pick. And then we traded back in the draft with Kansas City. That was the pick that became Mahomes. The Mahomes pick was originally Buffalo's. Buffalo traded with Kansas City, and we got Kansas City's 1st-round pick the next year. So Buffalo went in to the draft for Josh Allen with 2 firsts, 2 seconds, 2 thirds. Okay, we're going to go get our guy. And that's
you guys got the wrong Josh. I think we can all agree on that now, right?
Yeah. So my opinion is that's the team building formula for getting a quarterback that nobody talks about. Everybody's talking about tank to get one of these 3 quarterbacks next year. Now, if I were the Jets, I'd trade back far enough that I get a 1st-round pick from any team next year. And then you now have the ammunition in that draft to trade up and go get whatever guy you like.
Do you think that there is something in this draft that could be available when the Jets are picking at 7 that would entice a team that is far enough back, to your point, that would be willing to give up a future first to move up with the Jets at 7?
Maybe. So I ask that question whenever somebody says trade back.
Yeah, right.
You've automatically kicked back who's somebody trading up for.
Yeah.
So Mason Graham, yes.
Okay.
There's probably a couple of edge players like Izuraku.
Ooh, okay.
Right? So if somebody's in love with one of these edges, Shamar Stewart. Right? So the question that I would have is there a team that's an edge away? And what I mean by that is they're a really good team, but they don't have a pass rush. And they need the Shamar Stewart type. Go up and get it.
Yeah. That would be the thought. Yep. Okay.
So the data, so be careful who you listen to on Shamar Stewart. The data that I'm looking at says no player with those measurables has ever not registered at least 1 10-sack season. Okay. So look at the people that analyze the schemes. And actually, there was a draft professor that did a really good Twitter thread yesterday. His name is Cole. Cole did a Shamar Stewart breakdown, is to say, okay, he didn't get the tackle here, but look at the technique he's playing. He's playing the perfect technique for what the defense asked him to do. Right? And that's the way you have to play on 1st and 2nd down. Right? He says, everything's there. Don't ignore, like, don't, or I should say, don't listen to the people that just stat scout. Cole literally broke out like 5 film clips and said, this is perfect technique, but he didn't get the sack. It's perfect technique. He didn't get the pressure, but he's playing exactly the way the defensive coordinator called the play. That's who you want. And we could say the same thing. Texas A&M's defensive line was loaded.
Mhm.
Right? They're going to have 3 guys drafted probably in the top 125. 2 guys probably in the top 50. Like, that was a good defensive line, but the defensive coordinator was asking them to do things that NFL teams are going to kind of tweak how they were asked to play. So I think a team would be willing to trade up for Shamar Stewart. It's the question of, like, is a team from 20 going to come up to 7? That's the, like, if that team is think of a team that got bounced in the first round of the playoffs that was a pass rusher away. Would they be willing to give up next year's first to get a Shamar Stewart? And I think the answer to that is yes. Look at what the Texans did for Will Anderson.
Mhm.
I have the name right. Right, where
Yeah.
they traded back up to get him.
They
because
did.
They saw he was a generational prospect. I think Shamar Stewart's on the edge of being a generational edge prospect. Like, what would the Jets world think if Shamar Stewart was the pick for the Jets?
Probably pretty angry. And I would say the reason for it is there's a lot of projection of what, again, there is the analytical crowd of everything that you pointed to, and it's right. My boy Jordan Reed, who's now at ESPN, and there's several others that are Shamar, like lovers and pound the tables. And then Jet fan, and I get it. This is draft community versus a court of public opinion. I suppose Dane Brugler saw a pound of the table for it because some fans are Google fans. Let me see how many sacks he's had. Wait, what the hell? And they have that particular take. So I think that would anger people. But again, sometimes you just got to trust your coaching staff whether or not they can develop. And I've heard the term used disruptor a lot for Shamar. Disruptor, game record, disruptor. And I think the lack of stats would probably scare some Jet fans. Yes.
Yep. So, and any first round pick can bust. Always count your hits, don't count your misses. Right? Even some of the best baseball hitters of all time still miss 70% of the time, right?
But hey, that's a good way to put it.
Right?
And we're running.
Like,
yeah, go
count
ahead.
the hits. Count your hits.
All right, we're running out of time, but for Lily and Big D, anytime you ask a question about my handsome Syracuse quarterback Kyle McCord, I got to work that into the chat here for Jim. How high could you see Kyle McCord going? Guys, another great video is Gruden's Grinders, his quarterback camp. He just welcomed in Kyle McCord for a session. That video's up in the universe. Just give that a Goog search. And Floor Lily and Big D says, the more film I watch on Kyle McCord, the more I like him. What's your opinion on Kyle McCord? Where's he going in this class? What's the stock?
Okay, so I'm a homer, right? So from where I grew up, Syracuse University is the closest Division I school.
Yeah.
Right?
Sure.
So I am a closet Syracuse fan, right? I don't always put that out there.
Okay.
So McCord passes my eye test. Like when I just was first watching him play, what I like about quarterbacks are quarterbacks that throw on schedule. 3-step, back foot hits, ball out. McCord passes that test with flying colors. I love McCord. Okay, how high? So the question would be like, and again, you're trying to match quarterback to a scheme. Right. It's not about where he is on the board because there's 32 teams, 32 boards, right? So who likes a quarterback that throws on time, right? That's a West Coast type offense. Oh, I could see Green Bay, but would Green Bay do that in the first 3 rounds? Probably not. Right. So I think McCord is early day 3.
Okay.
With a ceiling of 3rd round, he could go in round 3 if somebody really, really believes in him. But I don't think he makes it out of round 5.
All right.
So that's his window, but it's all about scheme fit. Does the team have enough picks to take a quarterback? I like him. Like we had him as one of the top 5 QBs in the class. When we did our first quarterback big board, he was QB5 kind of thing. So, but then there were plenty of people that said, I've got this guy, this guy's QB5. So he's like competing for QB5.
All right.
Right. So some people have him as QB5, some people have him further down. But I think we're going to see minimum 4 quarterbacks go before McCord enters the conversation.
Okay. There you go. Well, Jim, before we get you out of here, I'm about to head to the radio station, but give us some more plugs. And again, for the 700 people that are live here on the show, we appreciate you. Like the video, hit subscribe, show your support wherever you're watching. Again, I will repeat, Dom C is no longer with us as we're getting some of those questions and comments in. Dom C has his own thing going on. Again, an announcement to come from Dom C on his social media portals. Congratulations to him. But Jim, we've appreciated your draft professorship here on the program, and the draft professors, will be well represented on this program every Monday moving forward. We'll have more on that next week. But Jim, please give any more plugs and promotions you would to all the people watching live or the people that watch this show after the fact.
So, Paul, first of all, shout out. Thank you for having me on. I know that we put this together, and like you said, Dom, the fact that Dom recommended me, I'm already humbled, right? So just Dom, thank you. Paul, thank you.
Of course.
Draft Professor content at NFL Draft Fanatic, no I in Fanatic, on YouTube and X and Twitch. Daily draft content. So tonight, for example, we have a 2-round mock draft at 7 p.m. And then we're doing a cornerback big board at 9:15. Draft professors come from all walks of life. Some of our guys are college scouts. Mm-hmm. So like we have a episode being put together. How do you evaluate in the transfer portal versus building a draft big board? It's not the same evaluation. And they're going to go through, like sometimes in a transfer portal, you only get to watch 5 plays of a guy. And you have to make an assessment after 5 plays. Do we want him at our school or not? So our draft content and player evaluation content goes across the board. And sometimes we have pets on the podcast. Every once in a while, it's a child. Paul, it's a beautiful daughter.
Hey, there you go, Zariah Luna. There you go. You can say hello to the universe here. There you go. You want to say hi? That's okay. You don't have to say hi. There you go. Also, everyone can see your face. There you go, Zariah Luna. Say hello. You're live on the show. Live right now. Say hello.
Hi there.
Hi. Mike? You want to say something?
Camera shy.
That's okay. Yeah, camera shy, and she just woke up, I guess, but that's okay. But no, go ahead, Jim. I'm sorry for interrupting. Go ahead.
Well, oh no, it's okay. It's okay. Like I have kids too, and that's pretty cool. I'm just saying that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, daily draft content we cover. You know, we had a whole week dedicated to quarterbacks, and let's say podcasts that covered like Ole Miss versus Ohio State or whatever. We do cover things differently than what you've seen before, but when you have 50 people pushing out draft content, 2 podcasts a day, we're allowed to be different.
I love it. Well, thank you for the boop. Yep. Thank you for your draft professorship. Again, Draft Professors, the brand, will be well represented every Monday moving forward. And I appreciate your help in setting that up, Jim. And thank you for sharing your brand with all of us. Terrific. And I think you gained a lot of fans today, Jim.
Okay. Well, Paul, thank you very much. Again, humbled, and hope everybody has a great Monday.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in on this beautiful Monday. We'll see you tomorrow morning for Boy Green Daily right here on the show. Take care, everybody.